The Oklahoma City Thunder crossed a line in Washington, and now the NBA has to decide how hard it wants to hit them. What was supposed to be a normal regular season game against one of the weakest teams in the league turned into a full mess. Players were pushing, shoving, charging into the pile, and before anyone could stop it, the whole thing spilled right into the seats near the court. Fans were moved out of the way, a photographer got knocked down, and the game stopped feeling like basketball for a moment. It started looking like the kind of scene the league hates more than anything. And that is why this story is bigger than one fight, bigger than one game, and bigger than one bad night. This is about a championship team that keeps getting dragged into chaos, and now the NBA may finally be ready to make an example out of them. What makes this even more shocking is the team involved. We are not talking about a desperate group at the bottom of the standings. We are talking about the defending champions. We are talking about the team with the best record in basketball. We are talking about a squad that has been crushing teams all season, winning games, building toward another deep playoff run, and looking like the strongest team in the league. That is why this fight feels so strange. The Thunder have no reason to lose control like this. They are not fighting for respect. They already have it. They are not fighting for a playoff spot. That is already safe. They are not trying to prove they belong. They already proved that by winning the title. So when a team that good keeps ending up in ugly moments, people stop calling it bad luck and start calling it a habit. The game itself should have been simple. Oklahoma City came into Washington on a huge winning streak. The Wizards came in as one of the worst teams in the NBA, deep in a rebuild, playing for little more than pride. On paper, this looked like a mismatch. It looked like a game the Thunder would control from start to finish. But near the end of the first half, everything changed. After a score, players got tangled up under the basket. At first, it looked like normal NBA pushing. That kind of stuff happens all the time. Big men lean on each other, guards step in, a little chest-to-chest action breaks out. Usually it ends there. Usually a referee jumps in, players back away, and the game moves on. This time, it did not end there. This time, the heat kept rising. Jalen Williams got into it with Justin Champagnie around the ball. Bilal Coulibaly stepped in, maybe to calm things down, maybe just to stand up for his teammate. Then A.J. Mitchell rushed in, and instead of cooling things off, he made it worse. He shoved hard, hands came up, bodies moved fast, and once there was contact near the face, the whole thing blew up. That was the point where this stopped being a little exchange and turned into a full brawl. Players from both teams ran in. Kasey Wallace got involved. More bodies crashed together. The pile moved backward and sideways, and suddenly the fight was no longer staying on the court. It spilled into the crowd area, and that is where this became an NBA problem, not just a Thunder Wizards problem. The league can live with hard fouls. The league can live with players arguing. The league can even live with short fights if they stay contained. But once fans are involved, even by accident, the whole thing changes. The minute a fight pushes into the stands, every alarm starts going off inside the league office. The NBA never forgets crowd incidents. It never forgets how ugly things can get when players and fans are too close to a live fight. So even if no real punch landed clean, even if this was more shoving than swinging, the fact that players and bodies went crashing into the seating area makes it serious. A photographer was knocked down, fans had to move, equipment was sent flying. That is the kind of image the NBA hates, because it tells the world the game was no longer under control. And the worst look of all for Oklahoma City may have been the image of Shai Gilgeous-Alexander having to act like security for his...
There he was, the best player on the floor, the MVP-level star, pulling one of his own teammates away from the madness. That picture says everything. Shai was not adding to the chaos. He was trying to stop it. He was trying to pull the Thunder back into reality while the moment kept spinning. When your leader has to stop his own team from going too far, that tells you this was not some tiny misunderstanding. It tells you the emotions got out of control. It tells you the Thunder were not just caught in a rough moment, they were part of creating it. Then came the ejections, and that only added more fuel to the story. Jalen Williams was gone, Justin Champagnie was gone, A.J. Mitchell was gone, Kasey Wallace was gone. 4 players tossed, and 3 of them were from Oklahoma City. That is the part that made the Thunder side furious. They felt the punishments were one-sided. They felt too much blame was put on them. Their coach made it clear after the game that he did not agree with how it was judged. He tried to stay calm, but the message was obvious. Oklahoma City believed the officials got it wrong. They believed the balance of punishment did not match the full picture of what happened. But here is the problem for the Thunder. Even if the ejections felt uneven, too many of their own players still made choices that made the officials' job easy. Mitchell did not calm things down, he escalated them. Wallace did not arrive as a peacemaker, he charged into the mess with force. Jalen Williams was already at the center of the original pushing before the fight spread. That is what makes it hard to fully defend Oklahoma City here. You can argue about which Wizard should have been tossed. You can argue about whether Anthony Gill or someone else did enough to deserve punishment. But you cannot argue that the Thunder kept control. They did not. Their players poured gas on the situation, and once that happens, the officials are always going to come down harder on the people they believe pushed it from tense to dangerous. What makes this even more troubling for the Thunder is that the fight did not even cost them the game. They still destroyed Washington. They still won by more than 20 points. Shai still dropped 40. The winning streak still moved forward. So on one hand, that shows how deep and powerful this team is. They can lose 3 players and still beat a bad team with ease. But on the other hand, it creates an even uglier message. If you are good enough to dominate anyway, then why are you losing your cool like this at all? Why are you playing with so much anger against a struggling team that cannot really challenge you? That is what makes people think the issue is not just one bad moment. The issue may be part of the Thunder's identity now. That is where the bigger story comes in. This Wizards fight did not happen in a vacuum. It was not some random moment out of nowhere. The Thunder have been building toward this for weeks. Back in January, there was already heat after the game against New Orleans. Lou Dort got into it with Jeremiah Fears. Players had words, benches cleared. Jalen Williams was involved in a separate exchange that same night. Then in late February came the ugly moment with Denver, when Dort tripped Nikola Jokic and Jalen Williams again jumped into the confrontation that followed. So now, when you look at the timeline, this Wizards brawl does not look shocking anymore. It looks like the next step in a pattern. January, February, March. More heat, more pushing, more chaos. 3 major moments in less than 2 months is not.
That is a warning sign. And when the same names keep showing up, it becomes even harder to ignore. Jalen Williams has now been in the middle of too many of these moments. Lou Dort has also been at the center of ugly contact and rising tempers. Case Wallace clearly did not help in Washington. A.J. Mitchell did not help either. So this is no longer just about the Thunder being a physical team. A lot of teams are physical. A lot of teams talk. A lot of teams play with edge. But there is a difference between playing hard and playing reckless. There is a difference between setting a tone and crossing a line. Right now, Oklahoma City looks like a team that is starting to enjoy the edge so much that it forgets where the edge ends. That is dangerous, because physical teams often believe they are always the victims once things get ugly. They tell themselves they are only responding. They tell themselves the other team started it. They tell themselves the refs lost control. And sometimes that is partly true. Sometimes the officiating does let a game get too rough before stepping in. Sometimes a little disrespect from the other side lights the match. But a mature team knows that none of that matters once the fight begins. Once bodies are flying into the crowd, you cannot keep hiding behind the idea that somebody else started it. At that point, the question changes. It is no longer who started it, it becomes who made it worse. And in Washington, too many Thunder players helped make it worse. That is why the coach matters so much in all of this. Mark Daigneault has built a hard, competitive culture in Oklahoma City, and it has clearly worked. This team is tough, disciplined in many ways, deep, hungry, and unafraid of anyone. That edge helped them win a title. That edge helped them survive big games and hard series. But the same culture that creates toughness can also create problems if it is not controlled. If players start believing every heated moment is a test of manhood, every shove needs a shove back, and every challenge must be answered with force, then the line between toughness and foolishness disappears fast. That is the risk for the Thunder now. Their best trait may also be turning into their biggest weakness. Daigneault's public comments do not exactly calm those fears either. Again and again after these incidents, the tone has been similar. He questions the refs. He points to what the other team did. He talks about how his team competes. What he does not really do is come out and say, "We have to be smarter." He does not strongly warn his own players in public. He does not clearly tell them to stop putting the team in these spots. Now maybe he says that behind closed doors. Maybe inside the locker room the message is stronger. But from the outside, it can look like the Thunder are being given a quiet pass because they win so much. And that is not a healthy look for a team that keeps ending up in the same kind of mess. The Wizards, to be fair, are not exactly saints in this story either. Their players did not just stand there with their hands down. Champagne was involved from the start. Other Wizards stepped in. Their coach said his players stood up for each other. And from their point of view, that is probably how they see it. Washington is a team with nothing to play for except pride. And pride matters in this league. No bad team wants to get pushed around in its own building by the defending champions. So yes, the Wizards had their own role in the fight, but that does not change the larger issue. The larger issue is not that one fight happened with one random team. The larger issue is that Oklahoma City is now becoming known for these moments. That reputation matters because the league office sees patterns. The NBA does not just judge one play in a vacuum. It looks at history. It looks at repeat behavior. It looks at whether fines worked before. It looks at whether prior warnings changed anything. And if the answer is no, the punishment usually gets stronger. That is why the Thunder should be nervous. Fines may not be enough anymore. The league has already seen them in multiple ugly situations. The league has already watched Dort go too far against Jokic. The league has already seen post-game heat with New Orleans. Now the league has a fight that spilled into the stands against Washington. At some point, the office in New York has to decide whether this team has crossed from hard-nosed to out of control. And that is where suspensions become very real. Maybe not for the whole team, of course, but for the players the league feels push the moment beyond normal basketball. A.J. Mitchell could be in trouble. Case Wallace could be in trouble.
Jalen Williams could be in trouble. If the NBA wants to send a message, those are the kinds of players it would target first. The league always says it wants players to de-escalate, not escalate. It wants teammates to pull each other away, not charge into the pile. It wants benches to stay calm. It wants the game protected. Oklahoma City did not protect the game in Washington. Several of its players helped blow it up. That is why missing games now feels like a real possibility. Some Thunder fans may shrug and say it will not matter. They may say the roster is deep enough to handle a game or two without these players, and in the regular season, maybe that is true. This team is stacked. It already proved against the Wizards that it can lose bodies and still cruise to victory. But that is not really the point. The point is what this says about where the Thunder are mentally heading into the most important part of the season. Championship teams cannot keep living on the edge like this forever. At some point, the edge cuts back. At some point, a suspension hits during a playoff series. At some point, one cheap foul becomes a flagrant, one shove becomes a missed game, and one moment of lost control changes a whole season. That is the nightmare hanging over Oklahoma City right now. Not what happened against Washington by itself, but what could happen in May or June if nothing changes. Imagine a heated second-round series. Imagine a conference finals game where tensions are already sky high. Imagine Dort or Williams or Wallace or anyone else getting caught in another ugly moment and missing a playoff game. Suddenly, the cost is not just a fine. Suddenly, the cost is not just a bad headline. Suddenly, the cost is a title defense falling apart because somebody could not control their emotions. That is why this issue is bigger than the Wizards game. It is about whether the Thunder can keep their fire without letting it burn their own season down. And the sad part for Oklahoma City is that none of this is needed. They are already good enough. They are already feared. They already defend at a high level. They already have the best player on the floor most nights. They already have depth, toughness, and confidence. They do not need extra chaos. They do not need fake intimidation. They do not need to prove they are hard. Everyone knows they are hard. The only thing they need now is control. That is the final step great teams have to learn. Anybody can play angry. Great champions know when to stop. Great champions know when to walk away. Great champions know that the scoreboard is the best answer, not the shove after the whistle. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the perfect example of that.
In the middle of all that chaos, he kept his head. He pulled teammates away. Then he went back to work and dropped 40. That is what leadership looks like. That is what real power looks like. Not jumping into the pile, not trying to be the toughest man in the room, not turning every push into a war. Shai showed the calm the Thunder need much more of. He looked like the adult in the building while others lost themselves in the moment. If Oklahoma City is going to win another ring, it is going to be because more of the roster follows Shai's lead, not because they double down on these wild scrums and try to wear them like a badge of honor. Lou Dort is another big piece of this discussion because his style sets a tone for the whole team. Dort is one of the toughest defenders in the NBA. Nobody questions that. He is physical, direct, and willing to make stars work for everything. That is part of what makes the Thunder so dangerous. But the Jokic moment showed how easy it is for physical basketball to cross into something cheap. Dort admitted the contact was unnecessary. That matters because it tells you even he knew he went too far. The problem is that if those kinds of moments keep happening, apologies stop meaning anything. The league will stop caring about words and start caring only about action. And if Dort or anyone else on this team keeps pushing the line, the suspensions will only get longer. Jalen Williams may be in an even tougher spot now because his name has shown up too many times. Once a player becomes known for always being near the fight, officials start seeing him differently. The benefit of the doubt shrinks. Every aggressive move gets judged harder. Every shove looks more serious. Every step toward chaos gets noticed faster. That is not fair in every case, but it is real. Reputation matters. Right now, Jalen Williams is...
He is too important to Oklahoma City. He should be known for winning plays, smart basketball, and big moments, not for being a regular guest in every ugly highlight package involving the Thunder. What makes this all even more frustrating for the Thunder is that the Wizards' fight did not come in some huge rivalry game. It did not come in the playoffs. It did not come in a matchup that had months of bad blood built into it. It came in a game Oklahoma City should have controlled with ease. That is why it feels like a discipline issue more than a rivalry issue. If a team cannot stay calm against a 16-win opponent in late March, how is it going to handle real playoff pressure when the games actually become brutal? That is the question the league is asking. That is the question Thunder fans should be asking. And that is the question the locker room needs to answer quickly. The NBA also knows that image matters. The Thunder are the defending champions. They are a model small market success story. They are supposed to represent smart team building, tough defense, and winning basketball. The league loves that story. But it cannot let that story turn into a brawl story. It cannot let the champions become the team everyone talks about for crowd incidents and repeated altercations. So there is real pressure on the NBA here to act strongly enough that the message is clear. Being the best team in the league does not protect you. Winning the title does not protect you. If you keep creating ugly scenes, the punishment will rise. That is why I think the Wizards game may be the breaking point. Not because this one was the bloodiest fight ever, it was not. Not because punches clearly landed everywhere, they did not. But because this fight checked too many boxes the league hates. Multiple players involved, bodies in the crowd, fans affected, a photographer knocked down, and most important of all, a clear recent history of similar problems from the same team. That combination is hard to ignore. If the NBA only gives out light fines again, then it is basically telling Oklahoma City there are no real consequences until someone gets seriously hurt. And the league usually does not like waiting that long. For the Wizards, this whole story is just a wild chapter in a lost season. For the Thunder, it is much more than that. It is a test. It is a warning. It is a moment that asks whether this team is mature enough to repeat as champions. Because winning once is hard. Winning again is harder. Everyone comes after you. Every team wants to test you. Every crowd wants to rattle you. Every rough game is a chance for frustration to boil over. The teams that repeat are the ones that can take all of that and stay under control. Right now, Oklahoma City looks strong enough to win it all again, but not calm enough, and that difference matters more than people think. So as the league reviews this incident, the real issue is not only who gets suspended and for how long, the real issue is whether the Thunder finally get the message. Toughness is not the problem. Their depth is not the problem. Their hunger is not the problem. The problem is that they keep acting like every heated moment needs a bigger answer. That mindset can destroy a title defense faster than any opponent can. The Nuggets would love to see it. The Spurs would love to see it. Any top team in either conference would love to meet an Oklahoma City group that cannot keep its emotions in check. Because once a champion starts beating itself, the rest of the league just has to wait. In the end, that is what makes this story so important. The Thunder did not just get into another fight, they revealed a crack in the middle of a great season. They showed that beneath all the wins, all the defense, all the talent, and all the confidence, there is still a dangerous lack of control. The NBA now has a choice. It can treat this like one more bad night and hand out small punishments, or it can send a harder message and force Oklahoma City to grow up fast. Either way, the Thunder have reached the point where excuses do not work anymore. They are too good, too deep, and too experienced for this. If they want another banner, they have to stop fighting every battle except the one on the scoreboard.